What's up guys, Vulkan here, and this is part 2 of the Last Epoch Beginner's Guide. This one covers crafting, character stats, endgame, uniques, and set pieces. This one's a little bit longer, appreciate y'all who stick around. Beyond that, let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about Last Epoch so far. Now let's get to it. So Last Epoch does have uniques, and it does have set pieces. Now, before everybody freaks out, set pieces in Last Epoch are not like set pieces in Diablo, where they're not required. Last Epoch developers, 11th Hour Games, have molded this game to be uniques, and set pieces are not more powerful than a well-crafted piece of gear. However, they do provide unique bonuses that you can build around if you so choose. So it's just a really kind of good way of going about it, I would say. So here's a set piece, for instance, Isidora's Revenge. It gives me 10% glancing blow chance, 180 stun avoidance, 40 health. It's a level 39 item. If a 2-piece is equipped, you get 80% increased necrotic damage if you've been hit recently. On a 3 set, you get plus 30% mana efficiency with necrotic abilities, so cast more, do more. But then you have also the Evoker's Grasp, which is a different set. Now, these are a set of rings. If you get the 2-piece, casting a lightning spell gives you 20% more fire damage. Fire gives you 20% more cold. Cold gives you 20% more lightning. So essentially, it creates a circle. This is fantastic if you have an elemental Nova build, where you're just basically spamming that AoE that cycles between all of the elements. So you're going to be able to really kind of dish out some cool damage. If you get the 3 set, it's plus 500 elemental protection, which is great because you don't have to worry about it on your other items. So those are set pieces. Uniques are these oranges over here. Now uniques are pretty interesting in terms of some will really hinder you and you have to build around them to kind of take advantage of their bonuses but compensate for their weaknesses. But then you have other ones that are straightforward, like Beast King. This is a one-handed axe, built perfectly for minion builds like the Primalist. So plus 25 melee fizz, 19% increased melee attack speed, 62% increased minion health, 8% less damage taken if you have minions killed recently. Minions take 25% less damage if you've killed recently. So it creates kind of a nice little synergy between yourself and minions. But then at the same time, you have things like Plague Bearer's Staff. 176% chance to poison on hit, which is fantastic. 164% base spell, 122% increased damage over time. And here you go, 100% chance to inflict plague on hit. Plague is a very, very, very aggressive poison that spreads like crazy amongst everybody, all the enemies near each other. So in place you have a 32% increased plague effect, 11% chance to inflict blinding poison on hit, 20% chance to blind attackers. However, 6% of your current health is drained per second. And that's not something that you can like spec out of. It's not like, oh, you're taking poison damage so you can put a whole bunch of poison resist on. No. So this is going to be something that you're going to have to build around. Maybe you overcompensate with health regen. Maybe you have ward, something like that where you can kind of counteract it, because this is a very powerful unique, but once again, it has a pretty big downside. So that's kind of how uniques work. I'll flip through some of the other ones I have in my inventory. I used to have like 2 tabs, but I rebuilt my computer and lost my offline save file, so good times. Either way, we have Close Call, the Falcon, Beast King, Raye's Light, so fire. We have Taste of Blood, which is all about bleeds, Hammer of Laurent, the Alchemist's Ladle, Strong Mind, the Slab, and this one up here, Chimera's Essence, which is all about shapeshifting. So if you are an acolyte who shapeshifts into Reaper form, or if you are a primalist who shapeshift into a werebear, 137% increased damage while shapeshifted. Pretty fantastic. So while we're here, let's talk about idols. Idols are a brand new thing to Last Epoch. Now, I talked about these in my recent video. However, I want to do not quite a deep dive, but just show these in action. So looking at your idols here, these function similar to charms from Diablo 2. So here we have a large idol. This gives plus 20% chance to gain inspiration on kills with void skills. and plus 75% block protection. So you read this, you're probably like, what is inspiration? Well, the cool thing about Last Epoch is you have explanations, comparisons, and crafting and item roll information. So if I hold Alt, I can see inspiration is a 4-second buff that gives me 20% increased cooldown recovery speed. Fantastic. Block protection is added to your armor and protections for hits that you block. Great. If I want to compare this, I can go down here, and here's a better comparison probably. I can do this. So whole comparison, that'll show me stat changes if equipped at the bottom. It'll show me my equipped item as well as the new item. So you can compare those back and forth. And then if you do Alt plus Control, you can see the ranges and the tier of your affixes. So my range on my melee cold damage is 13 to 18. So for a tier 2 affix, that actually rolled the worst, very bottom. My melee damage rolled fairly well. It's almost the top. And my chance to bleed is pretty much the bottom as well. Doesn't really matter. It's a leveling weapon. However, you can see the ranges there. It goes all the way up to tier 5, which we'll be talking about in a moment. So jumping back to idols, these are pretty different. So you can see one increased health, increased elemental protection, damage over time, poison damage, minion poison damage, damage leached as health on hit. And the cool thing about idols is there are some that are class specific. So you can see this bird, right, Raye, this is a Sentinel one. So this is specifically for the Sentinel class. This one is a Lagonian idol, which means it's Lagon, which is a god in the game, but this one is more generic. This one down here, once again, it's a generic and generic and generic. Over here in my stash, you can see the skull. That's going to be an Acolyte idol. You see this one here. This is a Mage idol. And this one down here is another Sentinel idol. But if you look at them, let's pull some of these bigger ones out. You have this one that's ornate. It's one of the largest around. This spans 4 slots, so this will span all the way across the top of my idol bar once I get all of those idol slots opened up. This one is a 3 slot, but it's tall, so it can slot in like this. That's called a large idol. This one's ornate, this one's stout, and this one's grand. Where is adorned is more of the square. And these little 2 slots are humble, and the small ones are small. So they have different kind of sizes to them, they have different names, so all of that kind of comes into play as well. But some of these are pretty powerful. So if you're looking at this Obsidian Ornate Glass one for my mage, 36% increased volcanic orb damage at the result of less speed, which is fine for me, and a plus 42% increased lightning damage, doubled if you have over 300 max mana. So once again, you take these things and you can really continue to fine tune your build, which is great. This is something that's really fantastic about this game, is there's so many points and so many levers that you can pull to fine tune and create the character you really want. So we've talked about all that. Next thing I want to do is I want to talk about crafting. Crafting in Last Epoch is a little bit different. You press F, open your crafting menu, and you set your item in here. Items drop with affixes unless they are white items. White items will not have affixes just because they are base items. So really what you're looking for is you want to look for a piece of gear that has a high base on it. So if you were to look and remember hold our Control and Alt, you can see up underneath armor, it's 5 to 5, so that's never going to change. But you can see mana is range 10 to 35, and that rolled as a 25. And then you can see I got a plus 22% increased spell damage out of a range of 5 to 25. So base stat-wise, this is fairly good. I wouldn't say it's the best in the world, obviously, but it's fairly good. And it comes with 2 tier 1 affixes that rolled pretty low. So the way crafting works is you have 2 prefixes and 2 suffixes. It has a little T1 next to it. Now, let's say I want to increase health regeneration. Let's do armor. I have more armor pieces. So I have 22 armor affixes. These affixes are dropped out in the world. They're orange, they drop on the ground, you pick them up. Always try to pick them up because you're going to constantly need them. So pick these up. If you hover over them, you can see armor can be applied to helmet, body, belt, boots, gloves, shield, amulet, ring, and relic. It cannot be applied to weapon, for instance. So I want to improve my armor. Armor is already on this piece of gear. So I click armor. I have a 100% chance for success, but it adds 5 instability to the item. So let's hit forge. You can see this changed to a tier 2. So if I were to hover over this again and press my Control and Alt, you can see plus 47 armor is now tier 2, which my range is 26 to 50, and that rolled fairly well at a plus 47. Let's say I want to go up one more. Now I really want to make this a T3 piece of gear. Well, you can see down here, I have a fracture chance of 15% and an 85% chance for success. That's a pretty good thing. I mean, 85% is pretty good, so let's hit forge. My item fractured. When your item fractures, you can no longer craft it. You can still use it. So I can still equip it like so, and I can still take advantage of what it has on there. However, I can no longer add things to it. My item has been fractured. So it is as it is. Now, as you get higher up in your tiers, so if you have like tier 4s and tier 5s, I think some tier 3s, you can get damaging instabilities, which means if it's damage, you actually lose some of your stats on that piece of gear. You can still equip it. If you get a major damage, at that point, that's when you can no longer use the piece of gear. It's completely destroyed. You basically just vendor trash it. So that's a blue piece of gear. If I were to look at my yellow piece of gear, my rare, it has 4 things on it. It has 2 affixes, or 2 prefixes, and 2 suffixes. I have a tier 3, tier 1, tier 2, tier 2. Let's say I want to increase my block chance, or void protection. So you can see here, I have a 70% chance for success, 25% major or minor fracture chance, and a 5% damaging fracture chance. Well, I want to protect this item. I really like this shield, so I'm going to use a support piece of gear called the Glyph of the Guardian. Now, Glyph of the Guardian will reduce this. So you can see it dropped it to a 5% minor fracture chance, completely got rid of the damaging chance, and this gives me a much better chance to continue improving my void protection. So let's forge and see what happens. I was able to forge it, which gives me a tier 3 void protection. Now let's say I want to do that again. Well, as you go higher up and the instability raises on your piece of gear, you can see instability by doing Alt plus Control. So you can see underneath shield, it says instability 25. So that's how you know. The higher the instability, the higher chance you have to get some pretty nasty effects. My Glyph of the Guardian, which recently dropped me down to 5% chance, is now 15% chance. So let's clear that out. Let's grab our piece of gear, and let's pull that out. So that's how crafting works in Last Epoch on a surface level. Now you can get into some pretty intense stuff. Thyworm has a really, really good deep dive video into crafting, but really that's what we're looking at. Now, the 2 last things I want to touch on is you have stats and you have endgame. I'm going to talk about stats because they're very quick. The biggest thing for getting started in Last Epoch, take a look and make sure your armor and protections are taken care of. This game, just like Path of Exile, can get very, very brutal very, very quickly if you do not take proper care of your protections. Your protections are armor, lightning, cold, fire, void, necrotic, and poison. Now here's the deal. Elemental protection counts for lightning, cold, and fire. Armor obviously counts for armor. Vitality will give you poison, necrotic, and void, right? You can go up here and you can see each point of vitality grants void, necrotic, and poison protection. Now you can also go into these specifically when you're crafting. You can say, I want specific poison resistance. I want specific fire resistance, void, whatever. But I would recommend try to keep all of these as close to 40% as you can when you're leveling up and you're going through the story. Now, if there's one like poison here dipped below and it's 30%, but the rest are looking pretty good, that perfectly fine. So don't sacrifice a ton of DPS in order to make up for that protection, but at the same time, don't go full glass cannon because this game has a lot of things that'll give you an insta-kill, and you need to watch out for those. Okay, so let's talk endgame. Endgame's pretty straightforward. Endgame is monolith. So right now in beta. Now there's a lot of other endgame systems that are coming. This is just the most prominent one that we have right now. The Monolith of Fate gives you 2 choices. In this timeline, enemies deal 25% increased damage, or you can choose enemies heal if they've not been damaged recently. If you choose the one on the left, you get 15% increased item rarity, aka magic find. You get 8% increased experience gained. On this one, you gain 10% increased item rarity, 6% increased experience gained. If you don't like either of these, you can re-roll both timelines for 100 gold one time. At that point, it gives you Frenzy Haste, so that's what we got on the left one, and 70% chance to shred armor on the right. So both of these are actually worse than the ones we had before. So if you choose one of these, it sends you off onto a randomized map, and you're able to progress through, get some great loot, kill a boss, do some objectives, and you can continue doing these until you die. So you can be on Monolith Wave 100. You can be on Monolith Wave 50. It doesn't matter. But the thing is, those modifiers that you choose, so like right here, Frenzy Haste, these will start to stack up. So on your choose a timeline underneath here, you're going to have a list of modifiers that are going to be affecting your runs, like rifts, and they're going to make things harder and harder and harder, but you're going to get better and better and better rewards. Now, one of the things with monolith runs, make sure to kill as many enemies as you can because rewards are based upon kills. Now, the other thing that's available right now is Arena. Arena is only active if you get an Arena key. Arena is a wave-based survival mode. Survive as long as you possibly can. The longer you survive, the better rewards you will get. So you get keys from monolith runs. So you have to do monolith runs. Every 5 runs that you do successfully, you get a key. It's guaranteed. Now, I don't have one right now because I used mine, but just know Arena is pretty fun, wave-based. It's great. Now, the other thing that I want to talk to you guys about is gambling. Gambling is like gambling. So they're all unidentified items. You buy it and you get this piece of gear. These are like this maroon color because we don't know what rarity they are. Now you talk to Artem the Gambler. He's available here in End of Time. And in order to interact with vendors, it's shift, right click. So like this fractured piece of gear, I want to sell this. Hold shift, right click, or right down here, shift, right click to buy an item or sell. And that's how you interact. So let's say I wanted to buy this Copper Aegis. Cool. Shift right click, rolls the rarity. I rolled a common item. So it gave me this Copper Aegis, which has not so great a base on it. Let's say I wanted to do this two-hander. Another common item. Let's say I want to do this one. A magic item. If I want to do this one, a rare item. And you can also get uniques this way as well. So I've gotten a couple uniques from rolling through Artem, and it's been fantastic. So that is something to keep in mind as well. If you need one particular piece of gear, so let's say I was really needing some boots, I go out here, I want these boots that have, let's see, I want some movement speed. So these Brigadine boots right here, plus 35 armor, plus 10% increased move speed baseline, right click roll, magic item, awesome, minion dodge rating, don't really care about that, stun avoidance. Then I can take that piece, I can throw it out here, and I can throw some extra stuff on it. When you get to a number of affixes, 3 or up, your item will change from magic to rare automatically, so the rarity does increase, and you can go out and build up whatever you would like, and then equip those boots right there. So there you go. That's kind of how that stuff works. So guys, that really is Last Epoch in a nutshell. This video is a little bit longer, but I hope all of you learned something from it and hope you guys can hit the ground running. The next video I'm going to do for Last Epoch is going to go through questing because that got a little confusing for some people, and look forward to some more Last Epoch content in the future. So anyway guys, this has been Vulkan. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you next time.